Just before 5 a.m. Eastern Time on May 7, 2021, inside Colonial Pipeline's control center, an employee saw a ransom note on a company computer. It was not on a pump. It was not on a valve. It was just a message on a screen. Within minutes, the note moved up the chain. By 5:55 a.m., employees began shutting down the pipeline. By 6:10 a.m., 5,500 miles of fuel infrastructure had gone still. This is the story of the cyber attack that stopped America's largest refined fuel pipeline. Colonial Pipeline was not a household name before that morning. It did not sell gasoline under a glowing sign. It did not own the station at the corner. It worked mostly out of sight, moving fuel through buried steel from the Gulf Coast toward the eastern United States. The system ran from Texas toward New Jersey. It carried gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other refined products. Every day it moved roughly 2.5 million barrels through terminals, airports, truck racks, refineries, and local distributors. That is the thing about critical infrastructure. Most people only notice it when it stops. The pipeline supplied about 45% of the fuel consumed on the East Coast. That sounds abstract until one link breaks. Then it becomes school buses, delivery trucks, commuter cars, police cruisers, airport tank farms, and people standing beside empty pumps. The attack did not begin with smoke. There was no broken bridge, no armed men at a gate. It began with access. According to later reporting, the attackers used a compromised password tied to a virtual private network account. The account was old. It was not protected by multi-factor authentication. To a criminal group on the other side of the screen, that was enough. A password is not supposed to be infrastructure. But in May 2021, 1Password helped create a national fuel emergency. The group behind the attack was identified by the FBI as DarkSide. It was not a government army, it was a ransomware operation. Its business model was simple: break in, steal data, encrypt systems, demand money. Provide a decryption tool if paid. It was crime with customer service. Colonial later said the shutdown was a containment decision. The company did not know the full scope of the intrusion. It did not know whether the malware had reached the operational technology network, the systems that helped control pipeline operations. The safest answer was to stop. So the operators did what they were trained to do. They halted the system. The attack did not need to directly open a valve or change pressure in a pipe. It only needed to create enough uncertainty that the company could no longer trust the environment around the pipe. That is how the invisible became physical. Some local lines were returned to manual operation, but the main system was down. And fuel logistics are not built to pause cleanly. A pipeline is not a light switch. It is closer to a moving river with contracts, terminals, truck schedules, refinery output, storage tanks, and airports sitting along the banks. When the flow stops, the disruption moves outward. First, industry people notice. Then officials notice. Then ordinary drivers notice. But trucks do not replace pipelines at scale. Colonial moved tens of millions of gallons a day. Replacing that with road transport meant drivers, trailers, loading slots, permits, routes, and time. The country had backup options. They were just smaller than the thing that had stopped. Then the public saw the headlines. A cyber attack had shut down a major fuel pipeline. That sentence traveled faster than fuel. In parts of the Southeast, drivers began topping off tanks. Then they began filling spare containers. Then some stations ran low. Then low stations became photographs. Then photographs became proof that everyone else should hurry. The shortage was partly physical and partly psychological. Both parts mattered. A fuel station does not need every customer to panic. It only needs more customers than usual, arriving sooner than usual, taking more than usual. After that, the station becomes a warning sign. The yellow bags over the pump handles do the rest. They also told people not to put it in plastic bags. That should not have needed saying. But panic has its own supply chain. Behind the scenes, Colonial faced a second decision. The attackers demanded a ransom. The payment was set in Bitcoin. Colonial's chief executive later told Congress that the company discussed the ransom late on May 7th, and that the payment was made on Saturday, May 8th. The ransom was about 75 Bitcoin. At the time, it was worth roughly $4.4 million. Paying ransomware is controversial for a reason. It can restore options for a victim. It can also fund the next attack. Law enforcement generally discourages it. Criminal markets survive when victims believe paying is the fastest way out. Colonial paid anyway. The company received a decryption tool. But according to public reporting and testimony, the tool was not enough to instantly bring the system back. Recovery still depended on backups, manual work, outside investigators, internal engineers, and step-by-step confidence that the pipeline could operate safely. The ransom did not buy a magic key. It bought time, maybe. It bought one more recovery path. It bought uncertainty in a different form. On May 10th, the FBI publicly confirmed DarkSide ransomware was responsible for the compromise of Colonial Pipeline networks. By then, DarkSide had tried to explain itself. The group's public-facing message said its goal was to make money, not create problems for society. It was a remarkable statement because it treated social consequences as an accident. Like the attackers had robbed a building without noticing it was a hospital. But ransomware does not need to understand a system to damage it. It only needs to touch the part nobody can ignore. On May 12th, Colonial began restarting pipeline operations. The restart was careful. Product delivery resumed to markets, but officials warned it would take time for supplies to normalize. The line could be moving again while gas stations were still empty. The pipeline could be operational while the public still behaved as if it was not. That lag mattered. A complex system can fail quickly and recover slowly. Trust moves slower than pressure in a pipe. By May 13th, Colonial said its entire system had restarted. By May 15th, it said operations had returned to normal. On paper, the crisis had lasted days. In memory, it lasted longer because it revealed something people did not want to see. The most visible part of the attack was the gas line. The more important part was the chain behind it. A criminal group did not need to defeat the United States military. It did not need to bomb a refinery. It did not need to sever the pipeline with machinery. It needed a network, a credential, malware, and a target whose business connected to millions of lives. The fuel system was private. The consequences were public. Much of America's critical infrastructure is operated by companies, not the federal government. Pipelines, hospitals, food processors, utilities, ports, and software providers all sit in the same gray zone. They are private organizations until they fail. Then they become national emergencies. After the attack, the U.S. government moved to harden cyber rules for pipelines and other critical sectors. But the lesson was not just that companies needed better passwords. It was that digital systems had become load-bearing beams in the physical world. A billing system can stop fuel. A VPN account can become a pressure valve. A message on a monitor can empty a gas station 3 states away. On June 7, 2021, the Department of Justice announced that investigators had seized 63.7 Bitcoin tied to the ransom payment. At the time of recovery, it was worth about $2.3 million. The announcement was unusual. Ransom payments are often gone forever. This time, investigators had followed the money and recovered a large portion of it. But even that victory had limits. The recovered Bitcoin did not undo the shutdown. It did not erase the panic buying. It did not make the next attacker disappear. It showed that criminals could sometimes be traced. It did not show that the system was safe. DarkSide's name faded after the attack. Other ransomware crews watched the attention, adjusted their names, changed their tools, and kept going. In that world, retirement can mean rebranding. A takedown can mean relocation. The Colonial Pipeline attack became a warning because it was simple enough to understand. A password failed. A company stopped a pipeline. Drivers lined up for fuel. The government scrambled. Millions of dollars moved through Bitcoin. Some of it came back, but the real story was not the ransom. It was the dependency. A modern country is held together by systems most people never see. Pipelines, servers, dispatch software, payment terminals, shipping schedules, identity providers, remote access tools, and ordinary employees making decisions before sunrise. At 5 a.m. on May 7, 2021, one employee saw a note on a screen. 15 minutes later, the fuel artery stopped. And somewhere in America, the next note is still waiting.